I bought a tire balancing machine and a tire mounting machine. It's going to go hopefully over there. It's about 5 feet from here to there. So as long as it can fit there, that's fine. I can always pull the car out if I need room to work on something. And it had been sitting at the drop-off terminal for, over 2 weeks, I think, because we had an issue where they didn't want to allow me the ability to inspect, even though I called up and got it A-okayed in advance from the girl I spoke with. And then when I show up, they're like, no, there'll be no inspection. Matter of fact, you're going to sign for it and take it, and that's it. And I said, okay, fine. I said, it says you need to leave the premises. So I left, and I contacted a credit card company. I contacted eBay, which is where I bought this from. I contacted the seller and filed a dispute on it, held their funds, which held their feet to the fire, which motivated the seller to contact the freight holding company. Freight holding company did not budge. So then the seller was forced to say, if there's anything wrong with it, we'll pay for shipping costs back, and we'll either refund your money or we will replace it free of charge. At this point in my life, I've learned you do not make bad deals. So you either wait until the deal works out in your favor or you walk away from it. But you don't make bad deals. And there was an issue where they had changed the listing to where it was to an inferior product. It wasn't what I ordered, and I was concerned about that, and I called them out on it. Visa said I was covered if that was the case. And then there was an issue where I wasn't allowed to inspect, and I made sure before I went and picked it up that someone's going to be responsible for it, not me, if it ends up being damaged. So that all worked out. Because otherwise, this would have been sitting here. I would have been responsible for shipping it back to California, and I'm not going to do that. I would have basically bought half of it and not owned any of it if that was the case. So you can forget that. But it's here now. It looks to be in pretty darn good shape. It's there's a couple things that are messed up, but big deal. I had them take it off the pallet. They were mad at me. They were looking to sabotage and do all kinds of stuff. So strapped it down, strapped it to each other. This thing just barely made it. And it looks like it's cutting into it. So I'm going to need a new strap. Probably end up having to replace all these straps. Luckily, Harbor Freight was selling these, a 4-pack for $6.99 with a code and on certain holidays. But the first thing I did was I brought them all the way up against each other by strapping them all the way across like that, and then you could see all the straps all the way across. And I did like 35 miles an hour, 40 tops the whole way home. And what I bought was a 680 model wheel balancer. And I also bought a 960. They call it an automatic. It's not automatic. Tire mounting machine. So I'm getting ready to take all these straps off. It's been sitting here for a couple of days. Luckily, it's less than 84 inches tall, so I could back it right into the garage and get to it when I needed to. Otherwise, I would have been out front breaking this thing down. Neighbors would have seen what I would have had. They were already nosy as hell when I pulled up with the trailer again. I don't know what I'm going to do with that pallet. Probably should have kept the other pallet. I could have used that wood on for something. Taking all the nails out and stuff. But anyway, I'm going to undo all the straps, break all that down, and then start opening up the boxes. And then I'm going to have to use my shop crane in order to get that thing off of there. And I've got jack stands in the front. I really need jack stands in the back too. But I'm going to take this one off first. Well, you know what I actually need? I actually need that one off first. That car is going to have to move out of here anyway, because that machine is going to go furthest over there in the corner, because the bead breaker will be on the right. The machine will be, the back of it will be facing this way, and the bead breaker's on the right side, so you roll up the tire over there. bead brake it, pump it, take it out, load it up, and then you're gradually moving from right to left. Once you get done with everything, you take it down and you mount it on the balancer, spin it, and start working that, and then just start working on the next tire. I used to be very good at changing tires. It was one of my first jobs, probably about my fourth job or so. And I had a buddy named Gary. Him and I would team up, and we would knock out a car in 15 minutes. It would have to be one of the little cars that had like 13-inch rims with probably like 175 tires on there. We'd pull the ticket off the wall, which had the keys in it. I'd hand him the keys. He'd go get the car. He'd pull the car around. We had our own little bay where nobody messed with us. And I'd go pull the tires. By the time I had the tires, he was basically pulling in. As soon as he pulled in, before he could even shut the car off, I was raising the jack on that thing and lifting the car up. That car would be up in the air. He was getting out, put the keys in the ticket on the windshield, and he would start impacting, taking off the first one. Hand it to me. I'd break the valve stem. I'd shove it on the tire dismounter. Have that thing, the old style, not this kind. These are the better ones. But because we're talking about steel rims, that's how we were able to get them done so quickly. It was put it on a machine. You had an arm that came over and broke the bead on one side while there was a bead breaker from underneath coming up at the same time. And then, typical dismount the tire, rip that thing off, throw in a new valve stem, lube up the tire, shove it on there, and I would do both beads at the same time on those little tires. Air that sucker up, get it up to 32, break it free, hand it to Gary right next to me. He'd go for the wheel balancer, and we would just go through all of those. And depending on who was ahead, trying to remember. I think he would take them off and he would put them on the car and start the lug nuts maybe, but I really don't remember. But it got to a point where I would go in there, or maybe we had torque sticks, and we would just torque them all down and put the hubcaps on. We already inspected the vehicle to see if there was anything wrong with it, and drop that sucker. And he was in the car, started up while I was lowering the lift, and he was backing out just as soon as that thing hit the ground and delivering it. And we were just flying through cars. We were doing 3-4 an hour, easy, depending on how easy they were. And we were moving them so quickly that the service manager got pissed at me because he was losing money because he wasn't able to sell these people by scaring them. So, you really need shocks and you really need a CVX and your brakes are low and it's dangerous and blah, blah, blah. Those people just wanted to get the hell out of there. We had just so many cars we were moving through there and so many tires. It was just absolutely amazing. And I was only making $5.50 an hour then, and that was the most hours I ever put in on the clock legally. I did 84 hours. I got 40 hours straight time, 40 hours time and a half, and then I got 4 hours of double time. The only time I got double time, and I was making $11 an hour at that point, which was just phenomenal. I can't remember how big my check is. I'd have to do the math, plus the taxes they took out. But I was making really good money, busting my butt. I was there on that doorstep before the manager showed up. I was so happy to be back in the state. And I would just be sitting there looking at the seagulls and listening to the palm trees blow in the wind. And manager would walk up with the keys because I took the bus to get up there. And he'd walk up with the keys, open the door, I'd follow him in, and I would leave with him that night. I'd be there longer than anybody else. And they gave me all those hours because I was busting my butt all day long. I took like a half an hour break or something, I'm pretty sure. It might have been an hour, but I think it was only a half an hour. And I'd go straight into the tire room, and I'd plop some tires down, and I'd go to sleep. And I'd wake up tired and, try to get back into it. And eventually I would, and I'd be right back off running again eventually after about an hour or two. I really enjoyed that job for a long time. But now that I have my own tire machine, I don't ever have to trust anybody with this car. I don't have to worry about somebody. This car has never been on a lift. This car has been babied in a lot of ways. And no other car will ever go on a lift that we own unless there is some kind of serious, unless there's something that's warrantied out and they have to replace it, then it's going to go in their care, because they don't give a crap about your car. They just tear it all up, and they're looking to make money off the car by doing other things. So as soon as it gets out of warranty, this car, when I did the first oil change, they had tightened it down to 60 foot-pounds. It took over 60 foot-pounds to break it off, and it only requires 16. So they obviously wanted you to come in for that next oil change. And I'm sure they did that on all the Corollas that came out of that. You know what? Was that this one? That might have been, you know what? I think it was actually the previous Corolla, the 2011. It wasn't this one. I take that back. Because this one we bought from the factory, or from the dealership, and this thing's never seen a dealership. So, anyway, I digress. That's me reminiscing about my first job and how I enjoyed changing tires and was good at it. I always wanted to be the best at everything I ever did. And I was brought up to have a strong work ethic. So I'm going to get to stop rambling here, break down these boxes, and in the next video you'll hopefully see it set up in blue and just functioning. Everything's working.